The jungle floor was a treacherous carpet of decaying leaves and hidden roots. One moment I was pushing through dense undergrowth, focused on my bearings. The next, the world simply dropped away beneath my feet. No warning, no sound, just a sudden, sickening void. My arms flailed, grasping at nothing but air as I plunged into the darkness. It was a terrifying, uncontrolled descent, the kind that steals your breath and freezes your thoughts. The fall seemed to last an eternity, though it was likely only a few seconds. Then, impact. A jarring thud that sent shockwaves of pain through my entire body, knocking the wind clean out of my lungs. I lay there, stunned, gasping for air. Dust and loose earth rained down around me. The air was thick, damp, and heavy, with the smell of ancient decay and something else, something acrid and unsettling. My head swam. Disorientation was a dangerous enemy here. I had to clear my thoughts, assess the damage. Pain flared in my ankle, sharp and insistent. Broken? Sprained? I couldn't tell yet. Every instinct screamed at me, to move, to get up, but a deeper, more primal caution held me fast. This was no ordinary stumble. This was a sinkhole, a natural trap, and I was at its mercy. Slowly, painstakingly, I pushed myself into a sitting position. My eyes struggled to adjust to the gloom. A sliver of light filtered down from the opening far above, a cruel reminder of the world I just unwillingly left. The walls of the sinkhole were sheer, slick with moisture and moss, offering no obvious handholds. Escape would be a monumental challenge. Just as that grim reality began to sink in, I heard it. Sound that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end. A low guttural hiss. My heart hammered against my ribs. Not just a fall. I was not alone. My gaze darted towards the sound. There, coiled among the debris, not 10 feet away, was the unmistakable hooded silhouette of a cobra. Its scales glistened faintly in the dim light, its head raised, assessing me with cold, unblinking eyes. And then another and another. The floor of this pit was a writhing nest of them. This wasn't just a sinkhole, it was a reptilian dungeon. The initial shock of the fall was instantly replaced by a new, far more immediate terror. Trapped, injured, and surrounded by one of the deadliest snakes on the planet. Survival had just taken on a whole new terrifying dimension. Fear is a powerful, corrosive force. It can paralyze you, cloud your judgment, and lead to fatal mistakes. Down here, in this shadowy pit with death slithering at my feet, fear was a luxury I couldn't afford. I had to channel it, transform it into heightened awareness. My first priority was to put some distance between myself and the immediate threat. Moving slowly, deliberately, I scanned for any slightly elevated area, a rock, a mound of earth, anything to get me off the main floor where the Cobras seemed most active. Every tiny movement was calculated, every shift of weight considered. One wrong move could be my last. My ankle throbbed with a vengeance, but adrenaline is a potent painkiller. I found a small ledge, barely a foot wide, a few feet up one of a tumble of boulders. It wasn't much, but it was safer than the ground. From this slightly elevated perch, I began a more thorough assessment of my prison. The sinkhole was roughly circular, maybe 30 feet across and at least 60 feet deep. The walls were damp, almost vertical, a mix of rock and compacted earth. The air was cool but heavy, stagnant. Resources scant, a few broken branches from trees that had fallen in long ago, some loose rocks, and the tattered remains of my day pack. Inside my pack I found my knife, a godsend, a small, nearly empty water bottle, a fire steel useless without dry tinder, a length of paracord. Not much to face a pit of cobras and a 60-foot climb, but survival isn't about having all the gear. It's about using what you have, and more importantly, what's in your head. The mental game was already underway. Panic was the enemy. Calm, rational thought was my best weapon. I focused on my breathing, slowing it down, trying to regain a sense of control in an utterly uncontrollable situation. The snakes were a constant, terrifying presence, but they weren't actively aggressive, just wary. For now, the immediate plan formed: secure my small sanctuary, observe the snake's behavior, and begin the search for water. Dehydration would cripple me faster than any venom if I didn't find a source soon. I also needed to understand the layout, the patterns of these creatures. Were there times they were less active? Were there areas they avoided? Every piece of information was vital. The silence, broken only by the occasional hiss or the drip of water somewhere in the darkness, was unnerving. But in that silence, I had to find the focus to survive. This pit was a test, and I was determined to pass it. By the dawn of day 2, thirst was a raging fire in my throat. The tiny sip of water I'd rationed from my bottle was a distant memory. My head ached and my concentration wavered. Finding water was no longer just a priority, it was an obsession. I scanned the damp walls, looking for any sign of seepage, any trickle that might offer salvation. The cobras were less active in the pre-dawn chill, a small mercy. But moving from my precarious ledge meant venturing back onto the main floor, the domain. Each descent was a heart-stopping gamble, my eyes constantly sweeping the shadows, my ears straining for the slightest hiss. I spotted it, a dark patch on the far wall, glistening faintly. Hope surged. It could be moisture. Getting there meant crossing an open area exposed. I moved with excruciating slowness, testing each footfall, trying to mimic the silence of a predator, not the blundering of prey. Several times a hooded head would rise watching me, an unblinking sentinel of this subterranean hell. I'd freeze, my heart pounding, waiting for it to lose interest. Overcoming that primal fear, forcing your body to move towards danger when every instinct screams, retreat. That's a battle fought in the deepest trenches of the mind. It's about mastering yourself before you can master the situation. The damp patch yielded a few precious drops, painstakingly collected into my bottle cap. It was muddy, tasting of earth, but it was water. Life. Each drop was a victory. Day 3 brought new levels of tension. The snakes seemed more agitated, perhaps by my continued presence. I had a terrifying near miss when a large cobra, startled by a dislodged pebble, struck out, its fangs missing my leg by inches. The whoosh of its strike, the sheer speed, was a chilling reminder of the razor's edge I was walking. I learned to read their body language, the subtle S-curve before a strike, the way the hood flared wider when truly threatened. Avoid direct eye contact. It's a challenge. Move predictably, slowly, no sudden movements. Desperation breeds innovation. I remembered old jungle lore about certain plants or smokes deterring snakes. My resources were pitifully limited. I gathered some dried leaves and the driest bits of rotten wood I could find, hoping to create a small, smoky fire if I could find a safe spot. but the risk of asphyxiation in the enclosed space or further agitating the snakes was immense. I tried rubbing crushed, pungent foliage from a hardy weed growing in a crevice onto my boots and the base of my ledge. Did it work? Hard to say. But in a survival situation, any action that gives you a psychological edge, a feeling of control, is valuable, even if its practical effect is minimal. The mental battle was as fierce as the physical one. Day 4 dawned with a crushing weight of despair. The constant vigilance, the gnawing hunger, the relentless thirst, and the ever-present threat of a venomous death were taking their toll. My ankle was swollen and purple, throbbing with a dull, insistent ache. Sleep was a fleeting luxury, snatched in short, nerve-racked bursts, always punctuated by the fear of a silent, slithering visitor. Fatigue was a heavy cloak, slowing my thoughts, dulling my reactions. This is when the mind can turn on you, when resolve begins to crumble. Panic attacks would rise like bile, a choking sensation, a frantic urge to scream, to claw my way out, to do anything irrational. I had to fight it. I focused on small, achievable tasks. Rechecked my meager supplies. Methodically scanned the walls for any change, any new potential handhold. Drink a meticulously measured sip of the gritty water I'd collected. These tiny routines provided a structure, a sense of purpose in the overwhelming chaos. I talked to myself not in a sign of madness, but as a way to externalize my thoughts, to reinforce my determination. You faced worse, bear, stay calm, think, adapt, survive. The words were a lifeline, anchoring me to sanity when the darkness of the pit threatened to consume my spirit. The isolation was profound. No human contact, only the cold, alien presence of the Cobras. They were a constant reminder of my mortality, of how fragile life is. I found myself observing them with a strange mix of terror and fascination. Their fluid movements, their lethal efficiency, their ancient primal nature. In a twisted way, they were my only companions in this abyss. Understanding them, respecting their space, was key to my continued existence. But the psychological pressure of being perpetually hunted, of knowing that a single lapse in concentration could be fatal, was immense. It grinds you down, erodes your will. Keeping my mind sharp was paramount. I mentally rehearsed escape plans, even if they seemed impossible. I cataloged my survival knowledge, trying to recall any obscure fact that might help. I thought of my family, of home, powerful motivators that fueled my will to live. You have to find that inner fire, that spark that refuses to be extinguished, no matter how dire the circumstances. It's not about being fearless. It's about acting in spite of your fear. Day 4 was a brutal test of that principle, pushing me to the very edge of my mental and physical endurance. The body was screaming for relief, but the mind had to remain the master. Day 5 brought the ultimate test of nerve. As the faint light trickled down from above, I noticed a new presence, larger than the others, darker in color, moving with an unnerving confidence. A king cobra, the king of this pit and an apex predator. It was enormous, easily 12 feet long, its hood flaring with regal menace as it surveyed its domain. Its hiss was deeper, more resonant, a sound that vibrated through the very rock I clung to. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just another snake, this was the boss. And it seemed particularly interested in my small intruder presence on the ledge. It approached my refuge with slow, deliberate movements. its head raised, tongue flicking, tasting the air. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This was a primal confrontation. I remained absolutely still, controlling my breathing, trying to project an aura of non-aggression, of respect. Any sudden movement, any sign of panic would trigger an attack. His eyes, like polished obsidian, were fixed on me. The tension was unbearable, seconds stretching into eternities. He came closer, his head now level with my ledge, mere feet away. I could see the individual scales, the power in his coiled body. This was it. A mistake now would be my last. Then, for reasons I'll never understand, it paused. Its head swayed slightly as if considering. Perhaps my stillness, my lack of overt threat. After what felt like an age, it slowly, disdainfully turned and glided away, disappearing into the shadows at the far side of the sinkhole. The relief was so profound it left me weak, trembling. I had faced the king and survived, but the encounter had a strange, unintended consequence. As the king Cobra had moved, it dislodged a section of loose scree on the opposite wall, revealing something I hadn't noticed before. A narrow fissure, a potential crack leading upwards. My heart leapt. Could this be it? A way out? The fissure was tight, dark, and its stability unknown. It would be a perilous climb, especially with my injured ankle. But it was hope, a tangible, physical possibility of escape where moments before there had been none. The King Cobra, my potential executioner, had inadvertently become my potential savior. The irony wasn't lost on me. Adrenaline surged anew, temporarily masking the fatigue and pain. The pit had thrown down its deadliest challenge, and in surviving it, had perhaps offered a sliver of a chance to conquer it. The game had changed. Section 6. The precipice of decision. Risk, rescue, or ruin. The discovery of the fissure presented a terrible immediate dilemma. To attempt the climb meant facing unknown dangers within that narrow crack. It could be a dead end, it could be unstable, leading to another fall, this time with no chance of survival. It could also be infested with more snakes or other creatures, crammed into an even tighter space. My ankle was a serious liability. A difficult climb would be agony and incredibly risky. Yet, the alternative was to wait. Wait for a rescue that might never come. Who knew I was here? How long before anyone even started looking? Days, weeks. My meager water supply was nearly gone. Starvation was a looming threat. The emotional roller coaster was intense. One moment, elation at the prospect of escape. The next, crippling fear of the attempt itself. To stay was to condemn myself to a slow, agonizing decline. A battle against thirst, hunger, and the constant psychological warfare waged by the Cobras and the crushing isolation. To climb was to take an active, desperate gamble, to throw everything I had left into one final, monumental effort. The thought of feeling the sun on my skin again, of breathing fresh air, of freedom, was a powerful allure, almost intoxicating. But the image of falling, of the darkness swallowing me again, was a potent deterrent. I spent hours weighing the options, my mind a whirlwind of calculations and anxieties. The Cobras were still a factor. Any attempt to reach the fissure would require traversing their territory once more. Fatigue gnawed at me, trying to drag me into a state of passive acceptance. But the fighter in me, the instinct to survive that had kept me alive for 5 brutal days, roared back. Waiting felt like surrender. Climbing, however dangerous, Felt like taking control, like fighting back against the pit that had tried to claim me. The decision began to crystallize, not out of bravery, but out of a grim understanding that inaction was also a choice, and potentially a fatal one. Ultimately, the choice was clear, if terrifying. I had to try. I would rather face the unknown perils of the climb, risking a quick end than slowly wither away in this dark serpent-filled tomb. The emotional cost of this decision was immense. A surge of adrenaline mixed with a profound sense of dread. I gathered my few belongings, my knife, the nearly empty water bottle, the precious length of paracord. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. This was it. One way or another, my ordeal in this sinkhole was about to reach its climax. The choice was made. Now, only the execution remained. Section 7. Echoes from the abyss, scars and strengths. That climb out of the fissure is a nightmarish blur, a testament to what the human body and spirit can endure when pushed beyond all conceivable limits. Every movement was agony for my ankle, every handhold uncertain, every upward thrust a monumental effort. The darkness in the crack was absolute, the air tight and suffocating. There were moments I was sure I was stuck, that I could go no further, that this cramped, rocky chimney would be my tomb. But the alternative, returning to the Cobra pit, was unthinkable. That fear paradoxically became my fuel. I thought of sunlight, I thought of freedom, I thought of life. When I finally clawed my way over the lip of the sinkhole and collapsed onto solid, blessed earth, the sun was setting. I lay there gasping, covered in dirt, blood, and sweat, every muscle screaming, my ankle a fiery ball of pain. But I was alive, I was out. The emotional release was overwhelming, a torrent of relief, disbelief, and a profound, bone-deep exhaustion. Looking back at that dark maw in the ground, it seemed impossible that I had spent 5 days in its depths, surrounded by death, and emerged. The experience had irrevocably changed me, carving new lines on my face and deeper ones in my soul. The physical scars healed in time, the sprained ankle, the cuts, the bruises. But the mental and emotional echoes of those 5 days in the pit resonated far longer. There were nightmares, of course, the hiss of a cobra, the feeling of falling endlessly. There was a newfound appreciation for the simplest things. Clean water, food, safety, the company of others. The world looked different, brighter, more precious. The encounter with my own mortality had stripped away the trivial, leaving behind a stark clarity about what truly matters. It's a harsh way to gain perspective, but incredibly effective. The experience also forged new strengths. It taught me the true meaning of resilience, the depth of inner resources I never knew I possessed. It underscored the critical importance of maintaining a positive mental attitude, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable odds. Panic is the real killer in many survival situations. The ability to stay calm, to think clearly, to make rational decisions under extreme duress. These are the skills that tip the balance between life and death. The sinkhole was a brutal teacher, but its lessons were invaluable, shaping my understanding of survival and, more importantly, of myself. Section 8, Forged in Fear, the Survivor's Toolkit. Reflecting on those 5 terrifying days, the survival lessons learned are etched into my very being, far deeper than any textbook could ever teach. Firstly, the absolute necessity of immediate environmental assessment. When crisis hits, you don't have the luxury of time. You must quickly understand your surroundings, identify immediate threats, and locate potential resources, however meager. In the sinkhole, this meant recognizing the danger of the Cobras, finding that small ledge, and beginning the desperate search for water and a way out almost simultaneously. Every second counts when your life is on the line. Secondly, resourcefulness is your greatest ally. You're unlikely to have the perfect kit for every imaginable disaster. Survival is about improvisation, about seeing potential in the seemingly useless. My knife was crucial, but so was the ability to use a bottle cap to collect water, or to consider using crushed foliage as a repellent, even if its efficacy was uncertain. It's about the mindset of making do, of adapting what you have to meet the demands of the situation. This creativity, born of desperation, can make the difference between giving up and finding a way through. My paracord, though unused for climbing initially, was a constant reminder of potential solutions. The mental game cannot be overstated. Controlling fear, battling panic, and maintaining hope are as vital as any physical skill. The psychological toll of isolation, constant threat, and deprivation is immense. I learned to break down overwhelming challenges into smaller, manageable tasks, focusing on the next breath, the next small movement, the next drop of water. Positive self-talk, visualization of success, and drawing strength from thoughts of loved ones are not just platitudes. They are powerful psychological tools. The will to live is a formidable weapon, but it needs to be consciously nurtured and protected against the onslaught of despair. Finally, respect for nature, even its deadliest aspects, is paramount. The Cobras were not inherently evil. They were creatures in their environment, and I was the intruder. Understanding their behavior, their triggers, and their boundaries was essential to coexisting with them, however precariously. Attempting to dominate or destroy them would have been foolish and likely fatal. Instead, a cautious respect and awareness of their power allowed me to navigate their presence. Survival often means finding a way to fit into the environment, not just fighting against it. These lessons, forged in the crucible of fear, are the core of any survivor's toolkit. Section 9. Beyond the brink. Embracing life anew. Sharing an experience like being trapped in a sinkhole with cobras isn't easy. There's a vulnerability that comes with admitting the sheer terror, the moments of doubt, the raw primal fear that strips away all pretense. But I believe it's important to share these stories, not for bravado, but to connect on a human level. We all face our own sinkholes in life, moments of crisis, despair, or overwhelming challenge. And while yours might not involve actual venomous snakes, the feelings of being trapped or fighting for survival can be remarkably similar. It's in these moments we discover what we're truly made of. The ordeal left me with a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for my life, for my health, for the people I love. It's easy to take these things for granted in the day-to-day rush. But when you've stared death in the face, when you've counted every precious drop of water, every labored breath, your perspective shifts. The world becomes vibrant, infused with a new sense of wonder. Small joys become significant. The warmth of the sun, the taste of fresh food, the sound of a friendly voice. These are no longer mundane. They are miracles. This heightened appreciation for life is perhaps the most enduring gift of the ordeal. There's also a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've been tested to your absolute limit. and found a way to endure. It's not arrogance, but a deep-seated belief in your own resilience, your capacity to adapt and overcome. This doesn't mean I'm fearless. Far from it. But it means I understand that fear can be managed, that panic can be controlled, and that even in the darkest of pits, hope can flicker. This inner strength is a powerful anchor, something to hold on to when future storms inevitably arise. The Sinkhole was a chapter of extreme adversity, but it also became a source of unexpected empowerment. Ultimately, surviving the sinkhole was about more than just staying alive. It was about rediscovering the fierce, indomitable human spirit that resides within all of us. It's about understanding that even when you're pushed beyond what you thought possible, there's always a little more fight left, a little more ingenuity, a little more hope. My hope in sharing this is that it might inspire someone facing their own struggles to keep fighting, to keep searching for their own fissure of escape, and to emerge, changed perhaps, but stronger, and with a renewed passion for the incredible gift of life. Never give up.